simplifying rational expressions. Remember that rational means fraction. We're going to simplify fractions, and the first step is to factor. Factoring is always the first step, and then we're going to simplify. Before we go into example number 1, please write this into the margin beside these first little notes. Here are 3 examples that people get confused. On this first example right here, you can cancel the x's, and this would be 1/4 when it's reduced. But in this second example, you cannot cancel the x's like that because this problem has an adding sign. When you are canceling, you're canceling factors. Factors are things that are multiplied together. This has adding glue. You cannot cancel this if it's glued together with the 4. You cannot cancel this x and that x. Same thing right here. You cannot cancel the x's like that. You can only cancel factors. Factors are things that are multiplied together. These are subtracted, and because of order of operation, you cannot cancel this x with that x. That is a very common mistake that you're not going to make. Okay, so this is a problem like we've done before, kind of a carry it on from the lesson that we were doing yesterday. And so if we want to reduce this, the 4 and the 12 are just numbers, and so 4 goes into 12 3 times. Our exponent rule says 3 minus 7. To divide the x's, we are going to subtract, and so that would be x to the -4th power. And so for the y's, we would subtract, and that would be y to the 2nd power, except that our rule says you can never have negative exponents in your answer. So this would be y squared, and the 3x to the 4th power would go to the denominator using the exponent rules we were working on yesterday. Okay, now this we need to factor first before we start canceling anything out. We can't cancel this out and make it 2. That is incorrect canceling because of the subtraction signs there. These are glued together, but I do notice that I can factor out a 2x squared out of this numerator. And so if I take a 2 out of the 8, I'm going to have a 4x. If I take a 2x out of that, 2x divided by 2x is going to be equal to 1. Okay. And so that has an x in common. I can factor out an x. If I take one of those x's out, and x divided by x is 1. And so I can cancel out factors. This parentheses cancels out that parentheses. And so I have 2x squared over x. And so that would be the same as 2x squared over x, and that x cancels out. You notice in this part right here, there's no adding sign, so I can cancel out, and so the final answer is 2x. Factor first. Factor first, factor first. And so nothing factors out of that. Let's see. The 4 is going to factor out of the numbers, and they both have an x. If I factor out a 4 and I factor out one of the x's, an x is left. 4 divided by 20 is 5, and the x factored out in front. And so this factor cancels that factor. And what I have left is a 4x in the denominator. What goes in the numerator? Problem number 4, factor first. Let's see, a 9 will factor out of the numerator. 9 divided by 36 is 4. Cancel the 9s. You cannot cancel the x's because this x is glued to that 4 with this addition sign. And so that is the simplified answer. Let's see. Looks like a 3 would cancel out of the denominator. I said cancel. I meant factored out. And so x minus 2, 2 minus x. Now this has an x minus 2, and this has an x and a 2. It looks like those would cancel, but the signs are not the same. This has a negative x, and this has a positive x. This has a negative 2, and that has a positive 2. But you can factor out a negative. If I factor out a negative or a negative 1, that would make this a negative and this a positive. Why would I want to do that? Well, then I can rewrite it. I have that negative I factored out, and I can switch the order of this. The positive x comes first, and the negative 2 comes next. And so this will now cancel that. But you can't cancel it here. You can only cancel it after you factor out a negative and so that the terms match up exactly. And so I have a negative on the top and a 3 on the bottom. That's not the correct way to write that. I would have to have a 1 here kind of as a placeholder. So that would reduce to negative 1/3. Do you remember how to factor out this numerator? 49 is a perfect square number, and so this is minus a perfect square number. The square root of 49 is 7, and so that's going to factor into x plus 7, x minus 7. This is a perfect minus a perfect square factors into a plus and minus. And so this x plus 7 cancels that x plus 7. X minus 7 is the simplified answer. Factor first. Out of the numerator, 2 and 6, a 2 will factor out. 8 goes into 24, so I can factor out an 8. 8 squared minus 3. Can I cancel the numerator and the denominator? Nope. One has a squared and one doesn't, so that does not cancel. And so the only thing I can cancel here is the 2 goes into the 8 4 times. You can't cancel an x minus 3 with an x squared minus 3. And so that's all that will cancel. This will factor out that's not the way it's going to factor. That's going to be a 2. And so this is a trinomial. To factor the trinomial, you multiply the first number times the last number, and you write down the factors of 6. These are the factors that would add up to give you a 1 right here. And so this is going to factor into x minus 2, x plus 3. This will factor, the factors will cancel, and this is x plus 3.